Storm Éowyn was one of the most powerful storms ever to hit the island of Ireland. In January 2025, close to 1 million homes were left without power, hundreds of thousands without water. There were unprecedented wind speeds and mass disruption to work, transport and day-to-day life. Éowyn came barely a month after the hugely destructive Storm Dara and less than a decade after Storm Ophelia, at that point the worst storm ever to hit the country and the only other time an all-county status red weather warning had been issued. So, are storms getting more frequent, more powerful and more destructive? Or are we just more aware of them since the practice of individually naming them began in 2015? And if things are going to get worse, how can we prepare? Hello, I'm Meghann Scully and welcome to Re-Energise, the show that looks at sustainability in all its forms and what we can all do to shape a clean energy future. Dr. Noel Fitzpatrick is a weather researcher and a science communicator. I feel like we're getting more storms than ever, or is it just because we're more exposed to it because of our social media?
I think it's both. So there's a conscious effort to make the public more aware of storms. So things like naming storms, for example. It's amazing how effective it is. People really latch on to a name of a storm and they understand it's an event so that it gets a lot more coverage. And that's useful because it means people listen to the warnings, people heed when to stay indoors and not to travel, things like that. And then there's also the increasing intensity of the storms that we're getting. So we hear sort of future projections of, we're going to have much worse storms in the future and things like that. But now we're actually seeing it, sort of a yearly basis that these storms are occurring now. So they're much more visible than they were, certainly because they're getting more coverage, but they're also increasing in intensity as well.
Okay, quick side note. Do you know how we name storms? It started back in 2015 and I never knew it was collaboration between Met Éireann, the Met Office in the UK, and the Dutch Weather Service. So each country submits a selection of names, and actually for the 24-25 season, the Irish submissions were all suggested by kids at the ESB Science Blast event. Is it a good thing to have a storm named after you? I don't know. I don't think I'd want to storm Meghann. Anyway, the naming system works, and the three countries' weather services have been very happy with the system, even if Dutch or English weather reporters might stumble over Ruan or Sive.
And maybe they give, presenters a little bit of difficulty, making sure that you pronounce it right. But it's a collaboration, and it's also helpful because it means that, for example, if in Britain, if the UK Met Office was to name a storm first, we can use the same name, and in the Netherlands also, so that because the storm obviously doesn't care about weather, doesn't care about country boundaries or borders or anything like that. So you're keeping a consistent message as that storm moves from country to country.
And all of this, of course, brings us to climate change and to uncertainty in a future with changing and unpredictable weather. We are going to have to plan carefully for the future ahead.
I think so, and it's important that we do, because when someone is maybe designing some infrastructure for a town or a city, or bridges or roads or flooding defences, things like that, they might use things like 1 in 10-year events, 1 in 50-year events to sort of plan for. But those events are becoming more frequent now. A 1 in 10-year event might be a 1 in 2-year event, say thinking of flooding, for example. So it means that designers and engineers and planners really need to consider what the environment and the weather and the climate is going to be like in, say, 50 years' time. So I think we are considering that on a practical way, and getting ready for that. There's a lot more messaging out there in terms of getting the message across that climate change is happening. It's not just something that's going to happen in the future. So, but like all of these things, there's still an awful lot of work to be done as well.
So it turns out we're all more aware of storms because of naming them, and that's a good thing. And while they may not necessarily be getting more frequent, they certainly seem to be getting more severe and causing more disruption, and we need to face up to this future. Don't forget you can listen to our companion podcast Re-Energise on all podcast platforms and get lots more on all of this. Noel tells us about chasing huge tornadoes across the US. We hear from a couple who were almost killed when a tree fell through their roof during Storm Éowyn, and we find out what goes on behind the scenes when a severe storm hits the country.